Hey guys, Happy New Year, Happy 2023, and this week I need to go back to a lot of the tanks for this car that I modified and pressure test them. Alright guys, welcome back, and those of you who've been watching will know that this is the Alfarrari and this is my Ferrari 360 engine, which is getting close to going back into the car. But before we do that, there's a bunch of things I need to do. Now, if you missed the previous episodes, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up, and please think about subscribing. It does help us out. So, along this process, I have done a bunch of things with aluminium tanks, which is, I have the fuel tank, which I modified, which was my very first go at aluminium welding ever. And I also spent a lot of time building the dry sump tank, and there's washer bottle tanks and overflows and a bunch of things that I've modified, a radiator, that I need to go through now and actually pressure test, because when I modified them, I didn't check it. And particularly that fuel tank, considering it was my very first lot of aluminium welding, I'm not super confident that it is completely airtight. So that is what we're going to start checking through today. So without further ado, let's start grabbing out some tanks and start doing some testing. All right, those who've been following for quite some time will remember that I got this Raceworks fuel tank and severely modified it. So basically I cut out the back corner of the tank and flipped it inside out and then welded it back in so that I could get this step into the tank so it fit over the rear parcel shelf of the car. I also sort of plugged up the hole which was here for the fuel level sensor. That I'm going to have to move the hole to the front, and I also put a new filler on the side. So overall, I've done quite a few modifications to the tank. I need to fit up a bunch of the bits and pieces and then see if we can plug up some of these holes and try and pressure test it. All right, I've gone around and I've plugged all the holes in the tank. I've put the cover back on, and I actually got one of the Raceworks pressure testing kits. So it's actually got a Schrader valve that you can connect into one of the holes, and I've got a gauge on here so I can actually sort of put a bit of air pressure into the tank. I don't want to put too much, and see if / where we leak. All right, so I obviously set this up and started pressure testing it, and you can see here exactly what I'm talking about. There's, by just using some spray, I can go around and you can see where the air's leaking out. It blows bubbles. So you just spray all the joins, and it looks like I've got a couple in this corner here, either side there, which I'm not that surprised about. There's one here. Oh, there's a tiny one there. Yeah, I've got a few leaks. That's not that surprising. All right, so I think my welding has come out a lot better. You can see my aluminium welding there. I've been using, for those who want to know, I've been using my, it's a WeldForce 201, which is fantastic AC/DC TIG. And yeah, the aluminium stuff, that's much better than what my previous mangled mess was. Look at what I did when I first started. That was pretty horrible. And then moving through, that is looking much better. So we will see now whether it actually has fixed the leaks or not. Let's pressure test it again. All right, so the bits that I fixed are not leaking, but there's one bit that I missed. So there's another little leak just under here, so I'll grind this back and just redo this edge, make it a little bit prettier at the same time, and we should be good. All right, so the tank is no longer leaking, but now we need to add in the fuel sender. So this is the fuel level sender. I had to move it from where it was previously. This is going to be relatively straightforward. The only issue I'm going to have with this fuel level sender is obviously that this is designed for a uniform shaped tank, and this tank having the notch out of it, once it gets past the level of the notch, is obviously a much narrower space, so the fuel level is going to drop drastically after that. But that's probably something I can adjust in the settings for the output for the actual fuel level signal. So we'll play around with that when it comes to it. But for now, we need to drill a hole and or a few holes and see if we can mount this thing up and make it nice and neat, and then we can set this tank aside and get it ready to paint. Moving on, we now have to do the dry sump tank. Now, those who were watching the progression, this is my dry sump tank that I built. I had to build it. There was nowhere else to put it. I couldn't run an off-the-shelf dry sump tank because you can't get the lines to the back of the car unless they drop down sort of and were the lowest point of the car and they're going past the hot exhaust and everything else. Like there's nowhere to put them. So this custom dry sump tank I built that fits inside the wheel arch of the car, just behind the front wheel, and it fits beautifully. I'm not sure how good the welding is going to be because again, this was me learning how to aluminium weld, and yeah, it wasn't the greatest. Before we get there, the difficult part is actually the oil level gauge that I've put in. So basically, if we pull out the inserts, as you can see, it's got baffling, and it's not just a big empty bucket. There's actually like a swirl pot in here, and yeah, it's quite a complicated piece that took me a long time to build. But what I have here, this is the oil level sender. So this is going to tell me how much oil I've got in the tank. The trouble is at the moment, it actually touches on the inside of the tank and gets stuck at the very bottom of the tank. It gets stuck down here because it's touching the edge. Now, I did cut a hole out and weld on a patch and make a bit of gap for it before. And before I welded it up, it was all good. I tacked it up, it still worked properly. And then when I welded it all the way up, it then touched again. I've tried to get in there with die grinder and stuff and clearance it, but that's not working. So what I need to do now is cut this patch off, clean it up, make sure we've got clearance, maybe give it a bit more clearance, and then weld another patch on, and fingers crossed we get it right this time. All right, so I've got my patch in there now. It's not pretty, but it actually works. I've bolted the lid on and you can hear that the oil level sender is actually moving in there, so that's a good point. So let's just go and trial fit it back in the car again, make sure it all goes where it's supposed to, and then we can start pressure testing it. And that's going to be the fun bit. All right, it fits. There's not a whole heap of clearance, but there's clearance. So now I'm going to take it out and we need to seal it all up and pressure test it and see if it's actually going to do the job that we need it to do. Miraculously, the only leaks I'm getting on this tank seem to be around the lid, which I knew there would be because I haven't sealed it properly yet. Yeah, this all seems to be quite a good airtight system. There's no leaks, particularly around the bottom, because obviously the oil in this tank is going to sit about halfway. It's going to be sitting sort of about here. So it's generally, it shouldn't have oil at the top anyway, besides oil vapors. So it shouldn't be leaking from the top. The bottom seems like it's all nice and solid and sealed. So that is another one down. So the last one is the radiator. All right, so you should be able to see here, my power scanner is connected up to the oil level sender for the dry sump tank. And you can see here that basically it reads 235 ohms when the tank is at the bottom. And as it goes up and down, sorry, it's awkward to hold all this stuff, but as it goes up and down, you can see that the levels change. And I've worked it out that I needed at about 95 ohms for when the tank is running at its optimal height, and anything above about 45 or about 50 is too high, and there's far too much oil in there. So it gives me an idea of where I want to be for when I set up the gauges in the car. But that's done now, so let's go and look at the radiator. All right, so as far as leaks go, the bungs on the bottom are all good. There's no bubbles coming out of any of these areas. But at the top, as you can see, there's bubbles forming up out of here. So there's one in there and there's one down under there. And then on the back, there's bubbles coming out of the side of this repair I did this here. So you can tell that I have some more leaks that I need to go and fix. Okay, so the leaks are now fixed. There's no leaks except for coming out of the vent, the overflow from the radiator. And it's looking good. So now it's time to start sanding all these things up. All these pieces need to be cleaned up and painted before they get in the car. So that's what we're going to do now. All right, well that is all looking fantastic. I'm very happy. They're all covered in a nice hard wearing black enamel. So I need to leave them set up and then we can start putting them back into the car maybe next week, which would be fantastic. But I suppose that's all the time I have today, so I think that means it's time for fun facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, in 1987 Ferrari unveiled a very interesting prototype, the 408 4RM. 408 because of its 4.0 litre V8 power plant, but more interestingly 4RM because of 4 ruoti matrici, which means four-wheel drive. This was Ferrari's first four-wheel drive, not the FF as many believe, and it used a very unique hydraulic all-wheel drive system. The 4-litre V8, which was revised from the 328, sat longitudinally and further back in the engine bay with the gearbox in front, and sent 70% of its power to the rear and 30% of its power to the front. The all-wheel drive system wasn't the only innovation for Ferrari. The 408 4RM also featured electronically adjustable suspension, rear steering, and its speed-sensitive adjustable rear wing. The first car built was painted red and it was made from an all-steel welded chassis. The second yellow car was made of aluminium and it was riveted and bonded, which made it 30% lighter. Ultimately, these two cars were the only ones ever built, but it still remains one of the most interesting of Ferrari's concepts to never go into production.
All right, that's just chipping away at it, getting a lot of those things pressure tested and then fixing up my mistakes and re-welding things. But yeah, it looks like everything there is going to be good, and all these bits need to be tidied up before they go in the car. So there's going to be lots more painting, but I think they look really good. And yeah, it's another thing ticked off the list.
Yeah, getting there. That's right. Like and subscribe. Let Jeff know what you think. If you haven't already subscribed, why not? And if you want to follow Jeff a day early, then when I skip the videos and see him for ads, follow him on Patreon. It will help him keep going in his Madcap Garage adventures.
Yes. So yes, thanks guys, and Happy New Year. We'll see you in the next one.
Happy New Year to everybody.
See you guys.
Bye. 408 because of its V8. 408 because of its 4-litre V8 power plant. This was Ferrari's first wheel drive.
First wheel drive.
See, Ferrari unicycle. This was not Ferrari's first wheel drive, as...
Yes.
Oh yeah, baby. It was made from aluminium and it was bonded and pointed.
Riveted.
Riveted and bonded. I keep forgetting the word riveted. Damn it.